Hey everyone, this is Kyle here, Reviewr, and I'm really excited today to introduce a brand new feature called Supplemental Forms. And it actually might be one of the most powerful and exciting features that we've brought. It can provide a tremendous amount of value to your programs. And so what I wanted to do today is kind of, outline some of the use cases behind Supplemental Forms, kind of the background on why we built it in the first place, and kind of some of the opportunities that's going to present itself. And then we're going to screen share, and we're going to kind of dive deeper at a high level of what this feature looks like, kind of how it operates, and what that means for you. So super excited. So let's kind of dive in. So the idea behind supplemental forms very much implies what the name says, is it's the ability to have additional forms and deliverables that get connected back to an applicant's profile. So what this means is it can be used for a lot of different use cases, things like reference letters, the collection of transcripts, the ability to manage like a nominator and a nominee workflow where the nominee is the core applicant, but then all the nominations become supplemental submissions to the original nomination. The ability to manage multiple phases or multiple rounds, where each phase or each round has its own unique deliverables and its own unique forms. Things like grant reporting, where once grantees or awardees are selected, returning back into Reviewr to submit, grant reporting each and every month or once a year. Maybe in the scholarship world, once you're selected for a scholarship, every quarter or every semester, you have to come back and submit, financials or transcripts. Sometimes they may actually trigger additional disbursements of funds. We're also looking at things like approval forms, where once you submit an application, it actually goes to somebody else who has to either submit additional content on your behalf or approve your form and kind of get tied back together. So kind of gets used in two different ways, one of which is additional submissions by the applicant themselves on top of their original profile, or additional forms that are coming in from external parties that get connected back to that application. So kind of a quick little story time of the original idea behind it, which goes back to letters of references. One of the things that we're hearing a lot from people like yourselves and people within the space is that references are old school. The challenge that they have is that when a reference gets submitted on behalf of an applicant, have a discrepancy between all the different references. Some people are better writers than others. Some people are submitting completely different kind of goals and topics behind their reference. Effort levels differ between one reference to another. And then when those references get included in the review process, there is no consistency amongst the applications, right? They're just kind of one-off file uploads, which makes reviewing and judging very, very difficult. So one of the things that we've heard is that instead of having reference uploads, they would instead like to have reference forms, where you, as the admins, can actually control the content being collected by the references themselves. So it's almost like a template that you're asking them to fill out. Now, obviously they can still have, different writing capabilities or different energy and effort levels from the reference, but at least the content you're collecting from them is going to be consistent for every single reference writer, as well as for each of the individual applicants. Same thing kind of goes with the Nominator nominee process, where what we were finding is that you'd have a whole bunch of nominations that would come in for the same nominee. And so what you wanted to see happen was be able to tie back all those nominations back to the nominee themselves. And so again, the idea here was to be able to be very, very flexible with being able to collect external forms, not file uploads, but forms themselves, and then tie them back to whoever the original owner or the belonging becomes. So that's what I'm going to kind of preview for you today, is kind of that reference concept, just because it was kind of the initial goal behind it. But please do keep in mind that it's a really powerful feature that, again, can be used for any additional supplemental forms on top of the profile, primarily reference letters, multi-phase nominations, grant reporting, multi-round, and things like that. So as we go, we'll try to kind of touch base on how those use cases could flow as well. But some of the verbiage that we're going to see here is very specific to things like references, because again, that's kind of what we're using today. So let's go ahead and let's dive in. All right, so what we're looking at here is complete dummy data, but this is kind of the new dashboard that you're going to be presented with if you are using this brand new feature for multiple submission forms or supplemental forms. So again, in this use case, we're looking at references, but again, it's not just for references. So what you're going to see now in your dashboard when you log in is actually a whole new, section or metrics for those supplemental forms. So you right away have what you normally would see, which is, your countdown of days remaining, how many entries you've received, received, where those entries are kind of in the overall workflow. Are they fully submitted? Are they in progress? But now you get those exact same metrics for additional forms. So in the sense of a reference, it's going to show you how many references you've received. Of those references, where are they? Have they been requested? Have they been requested and submitted? Have they been requested but are in progress? Which of course opens up a ton of power and capability, such as, the ability to see who the reference writers are, how far they've made it. You can send them built-in reminder messages. It allows the submitter themselves, or the applicant, to actually track the progress of the references. They can see, okay, of my 2 references that I've asked to submit for me, who's done it, who hasn't done it. We can remind them, things like that. So incredibly powerful. And again, from a dashboard perspective, able to see right away some of the metrics that pertain to it. Again, I'm trying to think bigger picture outside the box. You're also able to see, from a Nominator nominee workflow, how many nominees you received, but also how many nominations you've received. And then of those nominations, how many nominees were, nominated, how many of them have actually kind of accepted the nomination and begun to fill out their portion, reminder messages, things like that. If it's multi-round or multi-phase or grant reporting, obviously able to see how many entries you've received, but then also how many additional forms for those additional rounds that we're starting to collect. So again, kind of your new dashboard that's going to show you some of these metrics. What's also really cool about this is you're also going to have a hyperlink on the left-hand side that's going to take you right to that program. So not only can we see some high-level metrics about, in this case, the number of references that we've received, but you can also dive deeper into it and say, okay, of my references, what are their statuses? You can jump in here and you can view the references that got submitted. You can send them messages. You can remind them from here. So you're really, really able to manage not just the data capture, but also the people behind it, and the ability to kind of toggle back and forth between these different types of programs. So what I wanted to do here was kind of introduce a couple additional new interfaces and things like that kind of go along with this, but also walk you through an example of kind of how to collect these different references or additional forms or multi-phase grant reporting and things like that. So again, looking at some dummy data here, I'm going to go ahead and grab a test submission over here. And when I open it up, you're now going to have a brand new tab that is likely going to say, something like supplemental forms or additional forms. In this case, it says references. That when I click on it, you actually now have a full list of all the references you've received. So in this example, Leslie Nope is our applicant, and we have references from Anne, Tom, and April. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at 1, how to request references or additional forms, and then 2, what happens once you receive them, how does the reference themselves fill things out, and things like that. So again, this is obviously dummy data. This has also already been submitted. So obviously you can do it both from the front end. So in this case, Leslie, the applicant, fills out her initial form, filling it out from the front facing side of things as well as from the back end. So I can either kind of use this example, I can press edit. And so this is like what the form would look like. Again, this is a complete test form, but what you're going to have now is an entirely new interface that says add reference or add supplemental form. And in this section, you can actually type in the name of who you want to add the reference, or again, not only references, but it could be in the transcripts or additional forms, what their email address is. You're actually able to customize the type of request it is, because again, this isn't only for references. So it could be a transcript, a reference letter, other. You can control in this dropdown whatever you want it to say. You can have 50 options in there. You can have 3 options in there, whatever it might be. And then another really powerful feature behind this is the ability to not just save and send it, but also continue. So historically in Reviewr, when these programs were done, we had a more minimal viable version of this, where you'd actually have a notification that got sent after the initial application got submitted. The challenge we find with that is that you wanted the references, or even again, not just references, transcripts or the approval forms, you wanted them to begin filling it out prior to the applicant finishing, right? You don't want to have to wait for them to finish up. So now in this example, they can actually add them, save and send that notification. And then right off the bat, it's going to go ahead and trigger that notification. The applicant can kind of finish doing what they're doing. So boom, we just triggered a notification that's going to go up. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like now. All right. So in this example, we trigger the notification to go to the uploader or whoever was filling out the supplemental form. So two things are going to happen. Number one is they're going to get an email notification, and you will actually have the full capability and power to modify whatever content that they're going to receive. So what you see here obviously is just dummy text. The other kind of two things that come into play is that as a submitter of these additional forms, they're also going to get both a confirmation email as well as get directed to a confirmation page. Both of those, you also have the power to control what messaging that they see. So what does that solve is what we don't want to see happening is this going on, and then you have references who get notified saying, hey, did you get my reference? It's up until the deadline. They can't remember if they got it. So this kind of really brings transparency and helps kind of cut down on requests to you guys that you have to answer likely at the last minute prior to deadline. So again, full transparency, we're able to see who's been requested to submit letters, who's actually done it, who hasn't done it, those who got requested, what their statuses are, things like that. So we're going to go ahead and click on this link to actually submit our supplemental form, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like next. All right. So after clicking the link from the notification that goes to the person submitting the supplemental forms, they're going to land on a page like this. Now, this page will actually be completely custom depending on what you're trying to collect from them. So again, this is really the beauty behind the feature is that historically, the notification will basically just say, hey, supplemental uploader, click this link to add a file. But now we're actually taking them to a full-blown web form that can still collect files, but also whatever other fields you want. So drop downs, check marks, essay questions, file uploads, you can fill out whatever it is that you want to collect from them. This could be a one-page form, it could be a 50-page form. And again, kind of looking through the different use cases. Here we're talking about references. So you're guiding them through a reference template, not a reference upload, which is super powerful, again, to help kind of bring consistency to the reference process. But maybe thinking through some other use cases, that might have been a notification saying submit your nomination for so-and-so, or you're submitting a nomination and now you're filling out the nomination form. If this was a grant reporting form, instead of triggering a notification, what I would actually have done is clicked on a link that said, add supplemental file or add supplemental form, and then I've been presented with this page. So again, it doesn't have to be from an external source. It could be me as the initial applicant filling out additional forms on top of my profile. But so yeah, once they clicked on that link, this is what they got. They can go ahead and fill out the form, whatever deliverables they're requesting from them. This is obviously dummy data. It's asking for 3 kind of essay questions as well as some file uploads. I'm going to go ahead and add a couple files just so I can kind of talk about this, because within Reviewr, file uploads kind of really are one of our bread and butter features. The reason why I say that is that not only can we collect a very robust number of file types, everything from spreadsheets to PowerPoints to video files to YouTube integrations, but it's once those files have been uploaded, what happens next. So in Reviewr, we actually have the capability and the power to embed the files directly in our platform. So what I mean by that is that when you and your staff, or when a review member comes in and looks at somebody's profile, or in this instance, the file uploads in a supplemental form, they can actually embed that document right in front of them. So they can view PDFs, they can watch a video, they can look at a photo, they can look at an Excel spreadsheet, all in Reviewr side by side with all their note-taking tools and their score sheets and things like that. So we will take a look at that. But I wanted to kind of just introduce that here as well. So again, these supplemental forms are a full form power capability that can do all the other form functionality that you've grown accustomed to within Reviewr. Now, a couple other items that are nice to have within here is, that the submitter in this case can save, they can log out, they can come back later. Of course, you can see who they are, how far they've made. You can send them reminder messages. And then, of course, once they actually go and do their submission, confirmation email as well as thank you pages. So again, full transparency. If I am a supplemental form submitter and I'm doing it multiple times, so for example, if I was requested to submit references for 5 separate people, the system is actually going to be able to recognize which ones have been done and which ones haven't been done. So when they click on the link within their email, it's going to bring them to their dashboard, and it's going to show them a list of all their completed supplemental forms as well as those that are still kind of pending from them. So again, really powerful feature. All right, so here we are back in Reviewr, And the reason why I jump back in here is that now that we have a reference that submitted their additional forms, we can go and look at it. So that was Luke Skywalker that just submitted. So now I'm back in Leslie's application form. I can scroll through here. I can actually see from her perspective that I have 4 people that have submitted references. There's Luke's that just got submitted, but I also have 2 other people who they've been requested from but haven't yet done their submission. So keep that in the back of your mind. We'll kind of come back to that because it's an important discussion to have. But let's take a look at Luke. So again, Luke just submitted that form. If I jump up to references, there's Luke's name. And if I press view, boom, there's that supplemental form that we just requested from Luke, as well as all the content and deliverables that Luke added. So again, you can kind of see the power behind this. Again, thinking bigger picture, this could be Leslie Knope, the award nominee, and then we might have, a nomination that got submitted by Anne, by Tom, by April, and these are all of the nomination forms that they submitted on his or her behalf. If this is a grant application, this might be Leslie Knope's grant profile, and then every month or whatever the grant reporting is, you might have a separate line item in here saying, August grant reporting, September, October, and then when you view into it, you have all the content requested from them. Maybe this is a competition or a contest that's multi-round. You might have, round 1, round 2, round 3, and then when I press view, it'll open that form for that specific round. Other use cases, again, comes in like scholarships. You might have, second semester transcript or report card, right? So again, thinking bigger picture, really, really powerful features here. So what I want to do now is I want to actually manage some of these references because again, we have 2 that are in here that have been requested, but they haven't yet fully submitted. So from this page, I can actually click on this little link on the left, and it brings me to my supplemental form program where I can now go and manage my submissions. And right off the bat, you can see there's my most recent one from Luke. That was what was just submitted. So if I go ahead and click on that, there was that reference. I can view the file uploads. I can kind of preview that embedding that I had talked about where I can view file uploads right in Reviewr. I can toggle back and forth between my file uploads and my form, things like that. What I wanted to do is also kind of show you from that page the ability to send out reminders, because you have to be able to track and monitor how many references were requested and then how many were received. So what I can do here is I can target my 3 that were requested but not yet submitted, use my bulk action drop-down menu, and I actually send them email notifications. I can send them reminder messages and things like that. So again, really, really powerful stuff that we're doing here at Reviewr. Basically at a very high level, linking additional forms back to a profile. So at a high level, I think that's what I wanted to cover today. I think that there's gonna be a lot of additional use cases for this feature. Again, references, transcripts, nominations, multi-phase, grant reporting, rounds, approval forms. Right away, those are going to be the main ones that we're going to see, starting tomorrow. But I think people like yourselves are going to have some really powerful and cool, unique ways that they're going to leverage this feature. And I'm really stoked to kind of see what you guys come up with. So if anybody has any questions at all, or if you want to dive deeper into how this works specifically for your use cases, we can definitely schedule time, reach out to us. But again, really excited to introduce these features. And I want to thank you as well, because a lot of these features and things that we're doing aren't just things that we came up with here at Reviewr. It's people like yourselves, have been working with us now for upwards of 10 years, who are constantly innovating. You're on the front lines of these programs, and you're bringing to us these really powerful, value adding features that you guys need, and we're building them for you. So as always, I really appreciate your support and bringing to us these really cool ideas. So again, any questions at all, please do let me know. Really excited.